again a gluten-free Black Forest cake, but I'm going to show you very different techniques how to do it.
And this beautiful cake will not only outshine its glutinous cousins, but will fool anyone to think it comes from a professional bakery.
In the last video I showed you how to make traditionally a Black Forest cake, but I wasn't 100% happy with it.
It wasn't the perfect bite of cherry, whipped cream and chocolate. The cherry layer was a little bit too thick and the chocolate layer as well.
I'm not a perfectionist. Regarding baking, I'm definitely not a perfectionist. I wanted to find a different way, how to put the Black Forest cake together. So what I came up with, I want to pour the mousse, cut the cake layers thin enough, and make sure that the cherry filling layer is also not more than 1 centimeter, so I have this perfect bite. Let me show you how I make this perfect bite with pouring the whipped cream and making sure the layers are not too thick. Let's get started.
If you want to pour your whipped cream, you do want to make sure that your cake ring is a little bit bigger than your baking form. You want to give it about 1/2 inch or 1 centimeter space between cake ring and cake form. Otherwise, it's the same process as making a regular Black Forest cake. I'm going to quick fast forward though, go quick as a refresher through the process of how to make the Black Forest cake, and then I'm going to show you what you're going to have to do differently. If you want to know how I make a Black Forest cake and a sponge cake, please check out my video where I'm showing you how to make a Black Forest cake.
So we finished with all the preliminary work for the Black Forest cake. So we're going to jump in with where we would make the gelatin and prepare everything for pouring the whipped cream.
And now we're straining the cherries. You're going to pour off some of the cherry juice, add the gelatin's going to soak up all the cherry juice, and then you're going to heat it up to make sure the gelatin dissolves completely. So here's our first modification. Our cherry filling cannot really be bigger than 1/2 inch, which is like a bit over 1 centimeter thick, because we have to fit in 2 chocolate layers, 2 mousse fillings, and 1 cherry filling layer, and that has to fit into 3.5 inch tall mousse form. So we're gonna smash the cherries with our fingers, and if you don't want to touch them, use a fork. Smashing the cherries makes it possible to have a thinner filling. Add the cherry gelatin back to the cherries and set it aside to solidify. It probably will take 1 to 4 hours, and if you want to quick speed it up, put it in the freezer, but watch it carefully because otherwise you will have frozen cherry gelatin. And just before you put it away, add 1 to 2 tablespoons of brandy or Kirschwasser, which is a cherry brandy, and add the grated lemon peel of 1 lemon.
So here's where the whole entire science part starts. What you need to do is you need to stabilize the whipped cream with gelatin to avoid the heavy cream to get melty and slobbery all over the place. So you have to pour gelatin to the heavy cream and make sure you don't create lumps. And that is a little bit challenging.
We start with activating the gelatin. So we're gonna add 1/4 cup of water, which is about 60 milliliters. And then we sprinkle 1 package, which is around 10 grams of gelatin on the top of the water. The gelatin is now going to absorb any little bit of water and expand. And you can slowly see how the color changes from very white to like a really transparent, translucent look. When the water is completely absorbed by the gelatin and the gelatin looks translucent, we're going to slowly start heating up the gelatin on the lowest heat. The gelatin will now slowly dissolve and all the granules will disappear. If you use a spatula, you can almost feel how the granules on the bottom of the pot disappear. Make sure the gelatin doesn't come to a boiling point, because if so, the gelatin breaks down and you gotta start again. And that is why I always buy some extra gelatin, so I can avoid calling the husband last minute and telling them, I need more gelatin. And when the gelatin is all dissolved, I pour it over into a different glass container to help it to cool down faster. So here's the trick the cooking books never tell you. You want to get the gelatin down to the temperature of the heavy cream, because otherwise you're going to sit in lump city. First you want to get the gelatin down to room temperature, so put it aside and you may wait 10, 20, 30 minutes for that. In the meantime, you're gonna whip 750 milliliters, which is I think about 3 cups of heavy cream, to really soft peak. It's really just more aerated. In the meantime, the gelatin has reached room temperature, and I'm gonna pour some heavy cream to the gelatin to lower the temperature even more. and I added too much coldness to the gelatin. So it all became lumpy and clumpy, and I'm gonna have to start again. So glad I have 20 extra packages of gelatin.
What I forgot was that the last time I made the Black Forest cake, it was during the summertime, and the room temperature was about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is probably around 22 degrees Celsius. But now it's winter, and it's 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which is maybe 10-12 degrees Celsius, and it's freezing. So the gelatin though will react to the lower room temperature because it solidifies at cold temperatures so much faster, and that is probably what happens, and that's why I got the clumps. So we need to have more liquid to avoid it to solidify as fast.
So to fix that problem, we're going to increase the liquid to gelatin ratio. So I'm going to add half a cup of water, or 125 milliliters, and I add also half a cup of heavy cream to the pot. And now I'm going to sprinkle the gelatin over the heavy cream and water mixture. And I have 19 packages left. And I'm going to add 50 grams of sugar, which I forgot previously, but you can always add them last minute to the whipped cream. I drink another cup of coffee while I'm waiting for the gelatin to soak up all the liquid. And we're going to do the same steps again. We're going to heat up the heavy cream in the water, liquefy the gelatin over the heat, pour it in a different container, and let it cool down to room temperature. Just to make sure I don't overcool the gelatin too fast, I'm going to stick my finger in it. I'm going to pour the heavy cream and keep my fingers in there, and I start to feel the temperature change. I just want to get it to a cool state, but I don't want to get it so cold that it solidifies. I got the mixture to be a little bit below room temperature, and it is nice and liquid and has no lumps. I'm sure you can be more scientific and use a thermometer, but I'm gonna use my finger. We're gonna continue now mixing the heavy cream and slowly pour the heavy cream gelatin mixture to the heavy cream. Continue whipping the heavy cream until it comes to a soft peak. You reach the soft peak when the heavy cream holds a little bit the shape of the whisk. Finally, we get to the stage where we can assemble the cake. We're going to take the cherry gelatin and with a fork loosen it up. In case you forgot to add sugar, like I did, it's a good time now to add 60 grams of powdered sugar. Give it a good stir and pour it on the first sponge cake layer. Spread the filling evenly, but try not to get the filling to the edges of the cake. Place the second sponge cake layer on the top of the cherry filling. With my hands, I gently press on the top of the second cake layer to spread the filling. If you press a little bit too hard, the cherry filling will ooze out. I'm going to place now the cake ring outside the cookie layer. Now I'm going to pour the heavy cream on the top of the cake layer. With a spatula, I'm going to move the heavy cream into the empty space between the cake and the cake ring. I want to make sure that the second cake layer is covered by heavy cream by about 1 centimeter. I'm going to place now the third cake layer onto the top of the heavy cream. I'm going to use a chopstick to feel the edges to make sure it's center aligned. I'm going to pour now the rest of the whipped cream onto the top of the cake. And then I'm going to shake the cake to make sure that the heavy cream spreads evenly and all the air bubbles get released. Place the cake into the fridge overnight or until the gelatin is solidified, which could be up to 4 or 5 hours.
There is a cheat. You can put your cake into the freezer for 10 to 30 minutes. Sort of depends on your freezer and how fast it freezes. And your gelatin will solidify much, much faster. But you want to watch it like a hawk, because otherwise you end up with a frozen Black Forest cake.
When the whipped cream is solidified, you want to release the cake ring with a cake spatula. And gently remove the cake ring to avoid any damages to the whipped cream. For the final touches, I move the cake back onto the turntable. I decorate the rim of the cake with some chopped chocolate until all the sides are well covered. I explain in more details how I do the Black Forest decoration in my Black Forest video. I pipe a few rosettes with the leftover whipped cream. Sprinkle a little bit of powdered cocoa into the center of the cake. And as final touches, I add candied cherries on the top of the rosettes. When we cut the cake open, we can see how even the different cake layers are, which is much easier to achieve by pouring than by assembling the different cake layers. We can also quick measure. So on the right hand side we have the poured cake, which is 6 centimeters, and then on the right hand side we have the layered cake, which is around 9 centimeters. And it's much easier to fit a perfect bite on 6 centimeters than 9 centimeters.
I hope you enjoyed learning how to pour Black Forest cake, and if you did, please subscribe to my channel and add any reviews, comments, thoughts, suggestions for new cakes, and please check the bell for notifications for any upcoming videos.